Ba-da-ba-ba, ba-da-ba-ba. All right. Promoter 101. 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 Promoter 101.
John Valentino with AEG Presents, and here we are on Promoter 101.
It's the Promoter 101 podcast. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had an amazing couple days. This is the episode 191. We're so excited. After today, only a handful left. But this is a very special one because we've got a very special guest co-host from Live Nation Touring. Lesley Olenik is here with us. Lesley, welcome.
Hi. Excited to be back. Our first guest on this episode is the famous AEG Denver's Chuck Morris. He's going to talk about his amazing career, so everyone sit back and relax.
Plus, we've got Matt and Steve from Prism with a little bit of a glimpse of what's going on with their industry-changing software. But before we get to that, we've got you here. We can't really let you off the hook without knowing what's going on with the hot artists you're working with right now. I mean, Billy, Lizzo, the list is huge. What's coming up?
Well, we are in the middle of Lizzo's 'Cause I Love You 2 tour right now, which is crushing. Sold over 150,000 tickets on this tour. She is killing it, and we love Lizzo. We also just announced Billie Eilish's world tour coming out of her big performance on SNL with Woody Harrelson. So she'll be hitting Europe, the O2 in London. She's coming to North America and hitting MSG and the Forum and a ton of arenas in the States. And she'll also be going down to South America and hitting the arenas in Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Mexico. So we're super excited for her big world tour.
That performance on SNL is just groundbreaking. That must be the best I've ever seen.
She's incredible. I mean, she's such a star. It's so fun to be a part of her growth, and we can't wait to see what's next for her. Episode 191 starts right now.
Lucy Lawler-Freese, Rival Entertainment and the Fox Theater in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm on Promoter 101.
Have you missed any of the past Promoter 101 episodes? Well, all right. We're going to do you the solid. Look, go to promoter101.net on that computer device of yours, and we saved them all for you. Whatever you want to hear, whether it's the first one with Tom Ross, that's episode 1, or episode 70 with Mr. Rapino, we got them all. So just pick your favorite. Maybe it's Mark Geiger. I don't know what episode it was, but what the hell? Go search his name and you'll find them all. They're right there on promoter101.net. This week, we recommend episode 110.
We've got Bernie Cahill's Keynote Billboard Live Summit, the mind behind activist, artist management, guiding the careers of Empire of the Sun, Bob Weir, Dwight Yoakam, and now the Lumineers, sits down for a one-on-one with Emporium presents Dan Steinberg in a discussion that truly has no boundaries.
Hey, if you've got a free moment, please drop us a review, subscribe, or tell your friends about the Promoter 101 podcast. And feel free to tell all your friends, tell even your enemies, like the competitors at the other company. You know, they're not doing as good of a job as you, and that's because they're not listening to the podcast. So maybe you want to be charitable and tell them, hey, it's the podcast that's really making the difference. That's it. That's the ticket.
We are thrilled to announce that Promoter 101 has teamed up with the Recording Academy's Music Cares Foundation to do a little good. And you, our beloved listeners, can help. By going to promoter101.net and clicking the merch tab at the top of the page, you can pick up a stylish, limited edition Promoter 101 Call Ya Mother t-shirt or hoodie in a huge variety of styles and colors. 100% of proceeds goes directly to Music Cares and their mission to provide a safety net of critical assistance for music people in their time of need. Shipping and handling is absolutely free, and for the first $10,000 we raise, our good friends at Prism are matching donations dollar for dollar. Go to promoter101.net right now, click on the merch tab, pick out one of our awesome shirts, and be the heart and soul of the music community by donating to Music Cares. And don't forget to call your mother.
News of the week.
So, Luke, tell us what's going on with all the juicy dirt in the industry.
It's time for News of the Week. Some very sad news last week as we saw the passing of Busby, the songwriter, producer, publisher, record label, executive, family man, whose given name is Michael James Ryan, passed away last week at the age of 43. He leaves behind a legacy of songs and work, including Altadena, the artist development company and record label, which he launched in 2018, which has become a growing force in launching careers of artists of all genres. He recently received the BMI Song of the Year award for writing Florida Georgia Line's Holy and co-wrote Maren Morris's breakout first singles My Church and 80 Mercedes. His recent collaborations included John Bellion, Justin Tranter, James Arthur, Lady Antebellum, Missio, and Maren Morris's current album Girl, which was released earlier this year. MGM Resorts International announced on October 3rd that they had reached a settlement agreement to resolve the pending lawsuits and the October 1st, 2017 shooting at the Route 91 Harvest Festival in Las Vegas, Nevada. The total settlement amount is expected to be between $735 and $800 million, depending on the number of claimants to participate in the settlement, and the process is expected to be completed by late 2020. This news comes nearly 2 years after the event that left 58 dead and hundreds injured in the deadliest mass shooting in modern history. Lead plaintiff counsel Robert Eglett added, "While nothing will be able to bring back the lives lost or undo the horrors so many suffered on this day, this settlement will provide fair compensation for thousands of victims and their families. MGM Resorts is a valued member of the Las Vegas community, and this settlement represents some good corporate citizenship on their part. We believe that the terms of this settlement represent the best outcome for our clients and will provide the greatest good for those impacted by these events." Finally, so long SMG. AEG Facilities, the venue management arm of AEG, announced that they completed their business transaction with SMG to complete a new standalone worldwide venue management and services company under the name of ASM Global. Bob Newman, former president of AEG Facilities, has been named CEO of ASM effective immediately. Prior to joining the AEG Facilities, Bob Newman was at SMG for more than 20 years, last serving as the regional vice president for the company. ASM will be headquarters in LA, with key operations at SMG's old headquarters of West Conshohocken, Philadelphia. That'll do it for News of the Week.
Crack open a cold one with Steiny and the Pierce. Only on P101.
Up next, Prism.fm's Matt and Steve give us a glimpse at their industry-changing software.
We've got an exciting segment. You know, we never do sponsorship. We never do advertising, but we're making a special exception on this episode. See, what happened was we decided to do these awesome t-shirts and hoodies with all the proceeds going to Music Cares. And our friends at Prism said, you know what? We'll match the first $10,000 you guys raise. And we're like, you know what? You guys have a great product and that's such a cool thing. Why don't you guys come on the podcast and talk about just what it is you're doing with this amazing software that you've got right now? So people know. We wanted to get that opportunity out there, and we thought, what a menschy thing you guys are doing. So Matt Ford from Prism.fm, welcome to Promoter 101.
Thank you. Super appreciate being here.
Tell me about this booking software that you guys have created that is kind of like the buzz right now in the industry.
Yeah, so Prism is a tool to keep all of your show information in one place. And if you're a promoter or you're a venue, it starts at the calendar and has everything to manage your holds and confirmed events and announce dates and on sale dates and relevant dates happening in the market. And then you can take it all the way through the settlement of a show and everything in between. Your whole team can log in there, plan the show and settle the show, and basically everything that you need in one place.
You could have an offer sheet that's fully generated with all the different offers that are available to a normal artist, right? You can do verses, you can do promoter deals, you can do door deals, you can do flats. You've got the whole thing, right?
You bet. Any type of deal that you can imagine. And along the way, there's been some promoters that have found the edge, and we've expanded the edge, and it's got just about everything that you'd ever want to do, even the crazy deals.
You were talking to me that you guys are like set up now to do tour deals.
Yeah, that's right. Working with some bigger promoters that are doing tours across the country, and we adopted the software to encompass a tour deal that cross-collateralizes expenses and makes that whole process simple as well.
So cross-collateralization, for those of you that don't know that term, it's one of my favorite terms. It's when you're buying multiple dates and you do one settlement for the entire tour. So there's winners and losers. You shuffle them all together in the accounting. And before you pay out, everything has to be covered. So it's a tour settlement. And that's where cross-collateralization comes in. And this software is smart enough to take all the deals, put them together, and sort it together like a big sandwich.
That's right, like a big sandwich.
So you guys can generate an offer right in your system and send it to an agent from the inside of the system. It does it all.
Yeah, that's right. And it's all templatable. So if you're working with 30 different venues, you set up a template, and every time that you plug in that specific venue, it generates all the expenses and the ticket scaling that you would normally apply. And within less than a minute, you can adjust it and make it custom fit to that specific show, press the button, and you got an offer.
All right, so if people want to demo this, how do they reach out to you guys?
Right on our website, there's a form that they can fill out, or they can just email me directly, matt@prism.fm.
Matt@prism.fm, and on your website, which is located at what web address?
www.prism.fm.
www.prism.fm. Steve, how did you come up with the name Prism? Explain this to us.
Well, I was at a pretty cool concert with this really cool light installation. Thought about the connection between light and sound. And, we think of Prism as kind of taking all these different kind of giant stream of data, the stream of information, and putting it into the necessary categories. So if you think about like the Pink Floyd album cover or something like that, we're shining light into the prism that we've created, and out comes, beautiful, colored, and organized information for every person on your team. That's the thought behind it.
So it is the sound, the light, the experience all coming together and refracting into something beautiful that is your booking software. I love it.
That's right.
Prism FM couldn't have been cooler about doing the price match on all the money that we've raised. We're well on our way to getting every dime of that out of you guys. So thank you so much for your generosity. Everybody can go and check out your website right now. Email Matt and make this happen. Thank you so much, Steve, for being so generous to Music Cares.
No problem. Happy to help.
Prism is doing some amazing things, and they're so charitable to do a match on our Promoter 101 swag for Music Cares. So if you get a second, go to promoter101.net/merch and buy one of our stylish hoodies and t-shirts, and they will match up to 100% of whatever you donate. So buy a shirt, buy a hoodie, and they'll double the money. That's so cool.
Louis Messina, and I'm on Promoter 101.
Promoter 101 Flashbacks.
Episode 41.
David Marcus.
I'm critical of Ticketmaster because I want to continue to push it forward to make it better. I came back to Ticketmaster because I really believe passionately that we can make it better for fans and artists. We can make that the experience of buying a ticket a better experience. And in doing that, we can make ticket buying something you do because you're a fan that has a joyous aspect to it that's like listening to music or watching a video. And it doesn't have to be, oh shit, I got to go buy tickets. This is going to be an anxiety-ridden, disappointment-filled, expensive. I want to get rid of that. Like, it's hard to buy a ticket. It shouldn't be. It should be fun to buy a ticket.
Well, it should be easy. I don't know if it should be fun. I mean, I don't know that it can be fun.
Well, why?
Can it be fun?
Why not?
I get making it easy, but do you really have a vision to make it fun?
Yeah, it should be part of being a fan. It should be a reward. Being able to buy a ticket should be about who you are as a fan and what your relationship is to the artist.
I love the idea of it. People being excited to buy tickets, like the process. I miss waiting in line, camping out to buy tickets. I think that experience got us excited for the show. We earned our good seat.
Great. I'm glad you said that. So that idea of getting in line, that was the way tickets were originally sold. I mean, I remember I'm old enough to have gotten in line at record stores.
Good shows.
Yeah.
It was more important the earlier you went.
Right. And at 10 o'clock in the morning, the record store opened the door, or the box office window went up, and the line began to be processed. And then somebody said, hey, we can do this on telephones. And so they thought, okay, at 10 a.m. when the doors open for the record stores, we'll also activate the phone lines, and we'll just distribute that load, and we can sell tickets faster, right? More efficiently. And then in the late 90s, I think it was 96 or 97, someone said, hey, we can do this on the internet. And so at 10 a.m., when the doors open to the record store and we let the phones light up, we'll light up the internet, and we can sell more tickets. And over time, internet ticketing became the dominant way, with the same exact paradigm as started at the record store in whenever people started selling tickets, right? But that model has a problem when you get in the internet space. And it's actually got two problems. The first problem is caused by the fact that the thing we're selling, the ticket, is almost perpetually underpriced relative to its value in the market. Okay? So that's problem one. Then you associate the sale of this thing that is undervalued at the first moment it's sold with a system for selling it that rewards speed. The fastest person in gets the most undervalued ticket that has the most arbitrage opportunity. Well, there's a business there. And that business is investing in software that can harvest those tickets.
You're talking about bots.
Yeah, right? So, or get a room full of people who have 3 browsers open and a half dozen credit cards loaded and get them to buy tickets. Whatever it is, it rewards expert ticket buying and it disadvantages fans.
Let me ask you this as an outsider, as if I was an outsider. Why do you care who's buying the tickets as long as they're buying them?
Yeah, it's funny.
I know why the artist cares. I'm just curious, and I know you might say you care because the artist cares and he's your client, but I'm curious. I think Ticketmaster cares for a bigger reason.
Yeah, we care because we're a consumer brand. And if you're a consumer brand and you're selling tickets to brokers and consumers are now going to StubHub to buy their tickets, that's where the consumers go. How much longer do you have as a consumer brand before the buildings start saying, well, wait, why would I sell tickets through Ticketmaster? Why don't I just sell tickets through StubHub? And that's happening. And for 2003 was when StubHub was launched. So for 14 years, we've been distributing most of the tickets that StubHub's been selling to build a brand that's now worth however many billions it's worth. And Live Nation's a public company. And when we do our quarterly earnings calls, analysts say like, hey, StubHub grew 20x% this quarter. How did your resale business grow? Well, what's StubHub reselling? They're reselling the tickets that we sold the first place. Well, why are they reselling them? Because we do a poor job distributing them, and as an industry, we do a poor job pricing them. So I can't fix the pricing problem.
Managers and promoters control that.
Right. I can influence it, and I can provide tools, and I can provide insight, and I can provide expertise, and I can help them understand how to better price the first time, and I can give them the tools that allow them to do that. But at the end of the day, I don't make that decision. But what I can do is I can start to introduce ways to sell tickets that aren't based on speed. I can start to sell tickets based on not when the transaction happens, but who conducts the transaction. That's what Verified Fan, which is this program we launched in the last 5 or 6 months, is all about, and is the very first sort of insight into, which is, who are you?
My name is Trey Manny. I'm with Paradigm Talent Agency on Promoter 101.
Tweets of the week.
I hope you're ready because it's time for Tweets of the Week. Dan, it's never a good idea to upset an agent or a manager.
It really isn't, ever. They get mad.
They definitely do. When an agent challenges their own hold for a different act and will not release to themselves, but they still get upset about being challenged. I just don't get it.
I don't know if this has ever happened to you or not, when an agent challenges themselves and they won't release for themselves. It's always awesome. I see it with territorials a lot now with some of the bigger agencies. I'm challenging that date. Okay, well, you're the first hold. Oh, yeah, I need it. Okay, so maybe you might want to talk to you about it.
Overheard backstage. I don't care about the deal our agent cut or the signed contract. I'm the tour manager. I make the final call.
Okay, I get it. Let's just call the agent and tell him that you don't give a shit about him and you actually make the deals. How about that? Never goes over well.
That will do it for our Tweets of the Week. You can follow on Twitter at the Jew.
At the Jew. That's my Twitter name. I'm the Jew.
Is it weird when the Catholic girl says that?
No, it's actually kind of funny. I think we should leave it exactly there that you discovered it that way. I think that's awesome.
This is Christine Marshall from CAA, and you're listening to Promoter 101.
Established in 2016, Promoter 101 and its illustrious founding fathers, Sir Daniel Steinberg and the one and only W. Lucas Pierce, have fermented like the finest of wines. And after almost 3 years of bringing you only the most exquisite, educational, and thought-provoking interviews, it is with great pleasure that we bestow unto you the Promoter 101 Masterclass Sessions.
Masterclass.
In our feature session, AEG Denver's Chuck Morris talks about his amazing career. Sit back and relax. This is a master class on the music biz.
When you're hanging out in the Rocky Mountains, there's only one promoter that comes to everybody's mind, and that's the legendary Chuck Morris. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, my pleasure. Dan and I go back a long ways.
Growing up in this market, you are synonymous with Colorado concert promotion. It's like Barry Fay, then Chuck Morris. You guys built this market together for a long time.
Well, actually, I started before Barry. If you want to know a quick summary, I came out at 20 years old to Boulder to go to graduate school on a scholarship at CU in political science. 20 years old. I graduated from Forest Hills High School in New York and then Queens College and came out in 1965 on a PhD program.
Where were you going to get your PhD in?
Constitutional law, poli-sci.
There's the politics.
One of the reasons I do 1 million political benefits. I've done 50 of them, from all of Hickenlooper, one of my best friends, to Gary Hart, to Pat Schroeder, to I got the Eagles, thanks to Irving, to play for Ken Salazar. I do 1 million. That's my second love. And after 2 years doing well at CU, on my way to a doctorate, I loved music. I saw my first show in Lake Chautauqua, New York, the Kingston Trio in 1955. I was 10 years old and fell in love with folk music and bought every album I could. Started playing a tenor guitar, Martin tenor like Nick Reynolds of the Kingston Trio. Played in little folk bands. I wasn't that good, but loved music. Spent every penny I could babysitting and buying albums. Bought a banjo. It was just my love, but I didn't think I could make a living at it. So being the son of a principal and a school teacher, education was, third generation Russian Jew. Education is everything. So I graduated early from high school and college and came out to Boulder. Didn't even know what Boulder was. Took a train out here. Didn't even know the mountains were here.
So you hadn't toured the campus when you decided to come?
No.
Wow, that's a huge swing.
I like the girl on the front of Norland Library on the broshure they sent me.
I don't think you're probably the first person to choose a college based on the girl on the brochure.
And they gave me money. I was, my father was a school teacher. I grew up in Brooklyn in Crown Heights. Did well. I love politics. That's why I've done so many political benefits, but I love music more. And after 2 years, I decided I was going to drop out. My Jewish parents almost killed me, but I wanted to try something in the music business. I wasn't even sure what. And got a break from a guy named Herbie Kavar who owned the Sink, which was the number one 3-2 bar in Colorado.
Now, you say 3-2, and I don't think people outside of Colorado
you're right about that.
necessarily know about that, because 6-0 would be normal beer that you could only buy.
3-2 beer is in Colorado for a long time, between 18 and 21. So most of the college, right across the street from the campus in Boulder. And I was friendly with Herbie Kavar, who owned it. I used to have a beer with him after I left Norland Library studying. And one day I told him I had dropped out of school and I wanted to do something with people and music. And they didn't have any bands yet at the Sink. And it was the place. It would take a half hour to get in there just showing IDs on Friday afternoon.
That's on the hill in Boulder. It's still there.
App's been there for 60 years, 80 years. And he said, why don't you manage the Sink? And I said, I've never taken a business class. He said, no, Chuck, you're really smart. And everybody here at the Sink loves you. My manager just quit. And I thought about it and took it. And started managing the Sink, which was amazingly successful college hangout. And started booking bands in the back room, booked the second show of Flash Cadillac and the Continental Kids. I had heard from one of my bartenders that they were rehearsing, and they were CU dropouts, and they were sort of like a Sha Na Na. And I went to their rehearsal. They had played one date, and I offered them a keg of beer to play in the back room of the Sink, and we broke every record. And then I took the upstairs of the Sink and started booking local bands up there. And it got real popular, and I still didn't have any money. And a place up the street called Tulagi's, which was more of a dance hall, was bankrupt at the time. This is after 3 years at the Sink. I convinced the owner that we ought to buy it. I'd be partners with him and start booking national bands, because Boulder was starting to become a real music mecca. It was in a period of 5 years. Dan Fogelberg had moved there. Joe Walsh had moved there and started Barmstone. Stephen Stills had moved there and started Manassas. The Dirt Band lived in Denver and Evergreen and Aspen. A whole bunch of things happened.
And at this point, the Fox Theater was still just a movie theater. It wasn't a show house.
It was a movie theater. Caribou Ranch was getting ready to get open, which became I consider, Jim Guercio is still a great friend, the Abbey Roads of America. So 1 million people recorded up there, which is right on top of Boulder. And I felt that Boulder was ready for a national rock club. Didn't know very many people in the business. We bought it. I ran it, booked it, did everything, started making calls. Actually, Fred Bolander, who I just went to his retirement party, he started Monterey before. Then he was at IFA with Dan Weiner. He was the first agent that took my call. We've become best friends ever since, and sold me the Doobie Brothers on their first tour at Tulagi's, and Leo Kotke, who I later managed for decades and decades. And Leo is still with Paradigm, which was Monterey. And in a period of 3 years, I had, from rock, we had ZZ Top, Bonnie Raitt, so many bands, and my mind is a blank. The Doobie Brothers, ZZ Top, Bonnie Raitt, a whole bunch of them. In blues, we had John Lee Hooker, Muddy Waters, Lightning Hopkins, Mance Lipscomb, Big Mama Thornton, Johnny Otis. In folk, we had the Dirt Band, who I became great friends. They moved to Colorado, and I later managed them for 25 years. Leo Kotke, the Dirt Band, Earl Scruggs Review, Phil Oakes, Tom Rush, Tim Hardin. We had every kind of music. In those days, college kids, it was freeform radio. There was a station called KRNW, which became KBCO, and they played anything and everything.
So KBCO, for those that don't know, was the first AAA station in America.
And the biggest, still is.
Created the format.
Yeah, but before that, it was KRNW, and it was freeform radio. So if I heard a record I liked, I'd go down there. If they liked it, they'd play the heck out of it. I fell in love with a guy named Dan Hicks and the Hot Licks.
You're great.
Brought it down to the station. They loved it. They played it. And I booked Dan Hicks 8 weeks later, and he came in, and there was a line around the block. In fact, a funny story, if anybody knew the late Dan Hicks, I love that guy. He walked in. He's such a character. And there was a line around the block, and he said, "Who am I opening for?" I said, Dan, you're headlining. Those people are your fans. He said, but I've never played here. I said, well, they've been playing the heck out of your records. And that's how he did it. Did the same thing with Leo Kottke, did the same thing with John Prine, with Steve Goodman, all the people that played there. It was a different world. It was a great world.
Take the record down to the DJs, teach the DJs, get the DJs to teach the crowd.
Yeah.
And then bring the act in.
Yeah. And by the way, I think the business is in many ways is better than it was. I mean, we were all crazy. There was a lot more drug abuse and it was less of a business. I loved it. But, I'm not one of those older guys that wish the old times were here. I think it's a better business now. It protects the artists, it protects the fans, it protects everybody. And I think the business has gotten, in some ways I miss the old days where it was, it was a mom and pop business. I ran, after Tulagi's, all of the acts that I had, I wanted to do bigger shows. And every act that I had, I brought in for the first time, like the Doobies and Bonnie Raitt and ZZ Top and the Eagles' second show. And when the bands got bigger, they played for the big promoter, Barry Fay. And I said to myself, unless I get with this guy, and I had never met him, we fought over the phone. In fact, I opened Tulagi's with Zephyr, a band he managed. Long story short, I was a rookie. The late Candy Gibbons was an hour and a half late. I had to get 50 or 75 refunds. So I took the money off the band. Never met Barry. And he called me screaming when he found out how much I paid him at the end of the night. And he said, well, what did you do with those tickets? I said, I sold them again. He said, well, then you got to give us all the goddamn money. I said, yeah, but it was a pain in the neck. He said, and I was a rookie. He was right, by the way. So we screamed a few times later for the next 2 years because when I wanted to do John Prine in a bigger place or the Doobie Brothers, who I booked for the first time in Colorado, they always played for Fay. Fayline was a big company. And so I decided I better go and maybe consider going into business with him if I wanted to get bigger. So I called Barry one day, never met him in person, fought over the phone. And, Barry, God bless him, I love Barry in some ways. I loved him, and we had our differences, though. And I called him, and Barry, of course, answered the phone. What the fuck do you want? That was his way of saying hi. I said, I'm this kid in Boulder, and I've done really well. And I think I want to leave here because I only have a small part of the place. And Denver doesn't have a rock club now. And I'd like to go into business with you. And to my astonishment, he said, what are you doing tomorrow night? And I still remember. I had Mance Lipson was the opening, and I had Sal Valentino's group from San Francisco. He said, I'll come up and meet with you. And I hung up and said, boy, I hope I did the right thing. I wasn't sure. I was like, this is either the stupidest thing I've ever done or the smartest. He came up, walked in, all 305 pounds at the time, sat in my office and said, you're the best young club kid I've ever seen. Find a club. I'll put up all the money and we'll be 50-50 partners.
That's a great deal.
It was a great deal. And I found an old place called Marvelous Marv's. We bought it, and I named it Ebbets Field because I grew up 10 blocks in Crown Heights from the original baseball park of the Brooklyn Dodgers. And we named it Ebbets Field, and in a period of 4 years there, we had everybody from Steve Martin to name the bands in from 72 to 76. I mean, everybody played there. Jimmy Buffett's first tour, Dan Fogelberg's first tour. I can keep going, but it was Billboard Club of the Year twice. And then in 76, when Fayline was getting so big, Barry asked me to sell the club and become his right-hand guy. And we sold the club, and I became the number 1/2 at Fayline for 10 years. When we did everybody from the Rolling Stones to The Who to Willie and Waylon Outlaw Tour to all sorts of stuff is what I wanted to do in the first place.
Why cut the losses? Why not keep the club? And
because he wanted my time booking shows, going on dates. We were doing 5, 6, 7 cities.
Since you'd already proven the model, couldn't you guys continue to run the club?
Ebbets Field got every award in the world. We had every band that you could imagine playing there, from Ry Cooder to Randy Newman to Maria Muldaur to, as I said, Fogelberg, Buffett, so many acts, but we never made any money. It was 255 seats.
Okay, so you were building the future
Leonard
acts.
Skinner's first tour, Marshall Tucker's first tour. It made my career because I was developing relationships.
But you weren't making any money there at the time, at the shows that got it.
And Fayline was getting big, making good money on big arenas and doing tours. I was worth more to Barry and to the company joining the parent company, which was Fayline.
That makes sense.
And frankly, 8 years of clubs between Tulagi's and Ebbets Field, I was real burnt out. In those days, I abused myself a lot. I had been sober for 30 years. And, our whole business was like that. And I was getting worn down. But anyway, Fayline got big. I started doing bigger shows, doing a Willie Nelson picnics, doing all sorts of stuff. I did that for 10 years. And I had my differences with Barry. I love the guy. Best man at 2 of my weddings. Great friends. But he had business differences. I had business differences with him. And so I decided to leave in 86 when he was going bankrupt the second time.
Before you jump to 86, let's go back a little bit and do some history.
Sure.
Denver seemed like one of the first markets to really develop a music scene on its own. It's like you had Chicago, you had San Francisco, you had New York, but Denver really seemed to develop quicker than most of the other markets.
Well, it did, and I'll take a little bit of credit on that. We brought in so many bands. I mean, Ebbetsfield, we used to do 225 shows a year.
Now, that's a massive amount of volume for a club to be operating that much in the middle of the country.
Yeah, but everybody started playing Denver. We had great radio stations like KBCO that got started and KFML. We had a great concert market. Per capita, I think it still is the best in the country.
Obviously, Red Rocks is a massive thing, and we'll get to that in a minute. Obviously, the volume you guys do there now. But over 100 shows this season in the last couple seasons.
We're doing 118 this year.
Which is insane, right? So back when you worked for Barry, and that was just starting to develop, the Red Rocks Summer of Stars, people would wait in line to get the paper to see the calendar when you guys
had a double
broke
truck
them.
on Sunday in both papers.
People would wait in line at 7-Eleven to get that when it came out in the morning at 5 a.m.
Yep.
It was the biggest thing. But when you guys were breaking the Summer of Stars, and you guys broke 70-75% of your shows in that, and there were a couple that got announced later.
You know, it's funny. Faye and I, when we had a big year at Red Rocks, it was 40 shows.
That's right.
Now we do 120.
Right, and a small year
and
would
we
still
have
be like
competition.
22,
My
right?
old company, Live Nation, does 25 or 30. You know, so it's even more than that.
So, right, your competition does twice as many shows and even played there back in the day, and you guys are doing 3 or 4 times as many shows that ever played there in best
Remember,
year.
we took over Fiddlers, and we do 25 to 30 big shows there, and we do stadium shows, and we do 800 shows a year now, just in Colorado, my company.
Yeah, the volume is insane. But let's go back to, call it, 75 area at Red Rocks?
Right.
How many shows in a season when you and Barry were starting to do shows together was a normal season?
76 is when I joined Fayline full-time, and I started helping Barry book. Big season was 40.
40 shows. That's a massive summer season, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing very few shows actually sold out Red Rocks back at that point.
Oh, no, that's not true. We did not as well as now, where we sell 85% of the tickets on 120 shows.
But a normal show, like 5,000 people on average, give or take?
Yeah, but we did pretty well. I mean, it's the most beautiful amphitheater in the world. My theory has always been that you take any band, put them at Red Rocks, and they sell 2,000 to 3,000 tickets more than they're worth, because it's the most beautiful amphitheater in the world.
Yeah, there's certainly a bump for playing Red Rocks, the
Absolutely.
Gorge, the Ryman, Madison Square Garden, the Hollywood Bowl. There's a handful of these venues that are part of the draw. It's an incredible thing to see that built. And also at the same time, the population boom that's happened in Colorado throughout the 80s and 90s has massively exploded the population. The population you were dealing with when you guys were booking Red Rocks back then.
Well, let's take Boulder. When I went to school in Boulder, there were 15,000 kids, and Boulder was 40,000 people. Now it's 250,000 people, and there's 40,000 kids.
Do you consider Boulder a separate market from Denver?
No.
Does that change when you're talking about the Bluebird and the Fox and a play that size?
It depends. It depends on the band. If a band is strong enough, they can do both. But it is one market. I mean, and now it's funny. When I first came, my first trip to go to see you in the fall of 65, I took a train from New York City and I hitchhiked with a bunch of students on the train. And it was a cloudy day and raining, and I couldn't see the mountains. And I hitchhiked to Boulder, and we went over the last hill, and all of a sudden I could see the mountains, and I was blown away. I mean, I was used to the Catskills in New York, which were a little smaller, and blown away by everything, and fell in love with Colorado immediately and never left. I've been here ever since, never went back to New York. Between Boulder, going up the big hill from Boulder, people know the Boulder Turnpike, and from there to I-25 going into Denver, it was all farms. Broomfield was 3 blocks long. It was all farms. It wasn't one
it's almost
building.
always built. It's almost completely
now
built
it's all
up.
suburbs. It's all condos, townhomes, shopping centers, wall to wall. Denver and Boulder are basically one city.
Now, the diagonal from Boulder to Fort Collins is not that far at all either.
Meet the Longmont.
Right.
And then to Fort Collins,
right.
Yes.
Do you consider Fort Collins a separate market?
That can be. You know, Fort Collins and northern Colorado can be. It's more of a separate market than Boulder and Denver.
So can a band play Red Rocks and come back at a different point of the year and play Loveland, and that be okay?
Yeah, and if they're strong enough, they can play one show in the wintertime. Hey, when we did all the Dead shows. I still do it. I just did Folsom Stadium for the 6th year with Dead & Company. We used to do 5 shows at Red Rocks every year, 3 in the beginning of the year, 2 at the end of the year, and then we'd play McNichols Arena in the winter. It all depends. And they were, that was Jerry days. And they're still huge. I mean, we just did 70,000 people last weekend for 2 nights at Folsom with Dead & Company.
Dead & Co. last year I got to see in L.A. at Dodger Stadium, and then I got to see at Autzen 5 days later. The difference between the vibe of those 2 shows, one was a very clean, baseball's family entertainment setup of baseball. And the other one was a Grateful Dead concert.
Right.
What you guys have built in Boulder is like nothing I've seen. You've been able to replicate that experience from the second that you park and walk your way in. It's like the parking lot used to be at a Dead show, and the vibe is there, the grilled cheese and all the other things that probably we don't want to talk about right now. But the vibe is true. It's authentic. It's what the Dead shows should be.
What's really scary is when I go out in the field, like I did last weekend, I see these 70, 65-year-old ladies spinning in the front.
The twirlers.
Wearing the same clothes as they did when I did the Dead in 76 at Red Rocks. And they say, "Hi, Chuck, how are you?" Which reminds me that I'm no kid either. There's a whole new generation, that's why they're still so big. Their kids and their grandkids are going.
Just such an amazing, loyal
I
fan
think they're
base.
great, by the way, Dead & Company. I think John Mayer, he was always a great guitar player. We had him when he first started, and you could see he was a brilliant guitar player, but he was a pop star who went out with, famous actresses. This gave him credibility he deserved playing with the Dead. People realize what type of great guitar player he is. And he grew up on the Dead.
That's a high praise to be able to step into that role and for it to work, because
It works
there were a lot of
unbelievably.
holdbacks.
It works unbelievably. And we had Phil Lesh this year at Red Rocks with his own band, and he was great at 79 with a transplant and cancer. He looks great. He's healthy. It was unbelievable watching him.
They're an amazing thing on their own, and jam music has been amazingly huge in this market. Always has.
It used to be San Francisco was the jam capital. We sell, I believe, more tickets here for jam bands than San Francisco does. Because, you had string cheese grow up here. You had Yonder Mountains grow up here. You had leftover salmon grow up here. It's really become the jam capital of America. And we do so much business. String cheese is going to sell out 3 Red Rocks for the 15th year, 18th year, I don't know, this year for us.
The concept of 3 nights, and that seems to be the thing. Most acts stop at 3. But you've got several acts that can do that now. It's like Widespread just did 3. Avets just did 3.
Avets did 3 now for 5 straight years.
It's insane.
And they were a club act for us 11 years ago.
The build at Red Rocks to go from 1 to 2 to 3 is amazing. And that seems to be the 3. 3 seems to be the numbers that acts seem to like. A lot of people don't like to do 4 nights. It starts to get hard on their voice, especially at the altitude.
Yeah, and some of those bands barely can afford to play Red Rocks because they have so much production and so many people on the road, and they're playing the bigger amphitheaters or arenas where they make more money.
Right.
So sometimes it's hard to play there.
But still, 3 nights with any one band.
It's unbelievable.
That's amazing. And there's a lot of them. You're basically doing these mini residencies every year with these acts.
We've done, there's a bunch of them.
With that in mind, you've taken over Fiddler's Green, which is the bigger amphitheater in the market.
When I left, my second career, I managed for 10 years. I managed the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band for years, Leo Kottke, Big Head Todd and the Monsters, Lyle Lovett for 5 years. And I left Faye in 86 for a number of reasons I'd rather not get into. But when he got bailed out by Michael Cole, Michael asked me to stay on as a consultant.
CPI?
Yeah. So I stayed on part-time and managed for 10 years. And then when Barry announced he was retiring, I said to myself, I've always been the number 2 guy. Barry's retiring. It's time for me to go back. So I called my friend Greg Perloff at Bill Graham and said, "You want to start a promoting company?" And we had done it. Barry and I had co-promoted some dates with BGP when Bill was still alive, and then after when Greg and Sherry and all the other people took over. And he said, it's funny you say that, Chuck. Bill always said to me, never wanted to go to Denver, never wanted to screw around with Faye and Chuck. And now Barry's retiring and you're interested? I'll be on a plane tomorrow. He and Nick Clanis, who became the presidents after Bill died, flew in, shook hands, and we started Chuck Morris, Bill Graham Presents, which we sold to SFX. I kept running it, which sold to Clear Channel. I kept running it, which spun off to Live Nation. I kept running it with the same people. Hired the 2 greatest guys, Don Strasberg and Brent Fedrizzi, who are still with me.
I feel like you skipped a step.
My second or third wife.
No, okay. Well, I feel like when Barry retired, he was at House of Blues. Or what became House of Blues.
He came back out of retirement.
Well, wait, whoever's running Fiddler's MCA, whatever it was.
Jay Marciano never ran
they
our
offered
company.
you that job before you called across the street to San Francisco.
When Faye was announced his retirement.
But they offered you that gig, right?
Yes. And then they decided not to.
They decided. I thought you decided not to.
No, they decided they were going to bring in all out-of-town people. And they brought in Mark Norman and they brought in Jason. And offered me a ton of money to stay on as a consultant.
Okay, so they did make you an offer.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I had heard they had made you an offer that you had passed.
I passed on staying on as a consultant because I thought it was blood money, and I didn't want to do that. So I turned it down.
Now that I heard. I had heard you turn them down.
I absolutely did.
And then you and Greg cut a deal.
Yes.
Because my understanding was Greg never would have come to the market had you not picked up the phone and called Greg. Had you been able to cut that deal?
I'll promise. I still talk to Greg all the time. He's one of my best friends in the world. And yeah, we took off. And my first dream was to take this beat up Mammoth Gardens, which I always liked and always wanted to build it into a rock club. And since BGP owned the rights to the Fillmore, they built the one in New York and the one in San Francisco, which still, I said, let's build a Fillmore. And they said, where? And I said, I got this beat up old place that we used to be the last place we ever booked.
Maggie and Emmanuel's Club.
Yeah, but I always thought if you fixed it up, it could be a Fillmore.
Right.
Greg came in with a couple of guys, Nick Clanus and I can't remember who, one of the Brarsodis, and they looked at it and said, Bill would call this a Fillmore when we fix it up right. So we opened the Fillmore and had a tremendous run.
Couple of questions. And this is where I was going with when they offered you the job. Had they offered you the deal you were looking for and not a consultancy, you wouldn't have brought BGP into Denver.
That's correct.
They wouldn't have created this massive competitor because by you not coming to work for them, they opened the door for you bringing BGP and creating this partnership.
That's correct.
That would not have happened had they saw things differently.
Yeah.
You would have wound up with them. And Denver, because Denver was sewn up when Barry was here. There was one real big promoter.
We didn't have any real competition.
Had they done that differently, Denver would have still been sewn up.
Absolutely.
When you cut the deal with Greg, right, you guys came up with the idea with the Fillmore. It sounded like it was your idea
and it was
to take
Chuck
over
Morris,
Mammoth.
Bill Graham Presents. Yeah, they didn't know anything about that.
Had you already had that in your mind that if you had gone to MCA that you would have done the...
20 years, I wanted to take the old beat-up Mammoth Gardens and build it into a good rock club.
So would have that happened either way?
Barry, by the way, I tried to convince Faye, and he thought I was out of my mind. And when we opened the Fillmore, actually, Barry was retired then and made a quote that you can't, I'll never forget. It was really sort of, I laughed because I knew we had something when we built it the right way. He said, you can't make gold out of turd. That was his quote to the Denver Post. We'd never make it.
Man, the location of Mammoth is brilliant. It's 4 blocks from the Capitol. We're in the middle of Colfax, the heart of everything. The facelift that you guys gave that and what you did inside and outside, not only great for the community and its restoration of that building.
The whole Colfax area.
But great for the music scene. The size venue was needed. You either played the Paramount or you played the arena. There was really nothing in the middle yet.
Or the beat-up old place in Boulder on campus.
Right. But there wasn't a Buell yet. It hadn't come back online. Nope. So, there really wasn't a right room.
DU had the basketball court. We did a little show.
Oh, Magnus, which was fairly new, but a little bit bigger.
No, it was before Magnus. It was the old basketball court.
Yeah, I don't remember many shows there.
We did some. We did.
With the hockey ring, right?
Yeah. We did them in the 70s. You probably were in diapers then.
Yep. Let's figure out how you transitioned from concerts and decided to go into management because you guys were killing it. You guys were a one-horse town at that moment. You had everybody.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. I got into management. The third act that played for me at Tulagi's was a Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. And those guys all moved to Colorado, and I became their best friends. And I'd go up to their studio in Aspen to watch their recordings and did all their shows. Their only other manager before me was Bill McEwen, John McEwen's brother, the violin player in the band. Bill had signed a young comic named Steve Martin, who, by the way, was on the road on the bus with the Dirt Band for 2.5 years. That's how he got his chops.
Okay, so that's why he knows how to play
John
banjo
McEwen
the way he does.
They went to high school together. They were a banjo duo at Disneyland at 16.
Wow.
I can give you a lot of trivia here. Anyway, Steve then was exploding. Bill was producing a movie called The Jerk. He had just signed another comic named Pee Wee Herman and was getting ready to do Pee Wee's Big Adventure. And it was taking all his time. And he called me and I was great friends with Bill and the whole band. They were my best friends, at least in the business and personally, for that matter, or close to it. And one day Bill called and said, can you come up to Aspen? I want to take you out for dinner. And I was friendly with Bill, too. So I did. And he said, I'm getting too busy with Steve. And I signed this kid, Pee Wee Herman, and I think he's going to be just as big or close. And I signed another guy he was great at comics, by the way. He has Stephen Wright.
All right.
And I'm too busy for my brother's band. Would you take over? And I said, I've never managed anybody before. He said, Chuck, and I'll never forget what Bill McEwen said to me. He said, it's just the other side of the coin. You know those guys. You know their music better than I do. And they love you and you love them. It will work. And I took over, orchestrated a big comeback because they were, they had hits in the 70s like Bojangles and Make a Little Magic and American Dream. But it was 1981, 82. Rock radio was Donna Summer. So they were getting no airplay. They were sort of on the way down. And my first meeting with the bands, I said, I'm getting you a country deal. You don't have to change your music. We're going to Nashville. I'm going to get a country deal, and we're going to play you on country radio. And they was fairly skeptical, but they took my advice, and we had 10 or 15 top 5 singles. I helped executive produce Circle the Unbroken Volume 2, which won 3 Grammys, and we had a great comeback. And then I put together a band called Highway 101 that was Group of the Year. Signed a young kid from Klein, Texas named Lyle Lovett. Signed these kids from Colorado, dropouts from CU, and born and raised in Denver named Big Head Todd and the Monsters, and had a really, really strong management company with a bunch of acts.
So Big Head Todd grew into being a world-renowned, amazing, bluesy jazz act.
I wouldn't say jazz, but I'd say bluesy.
But yeah, but monster-esque, and no pun intended. Their size was incredible. Their sound was amazing. But bands didn't break like that in the 90s. Those bands were either grandfathered in from the 70s and super early 80s and 50s and 60s, or they just didn't.
They had done 2 independent records that actually sold pretty decently, about 20,000 apiece. I signed them in 1988. I saw them in Herman's Hideaway. Got them a deal with my friend Irving Azoff, who owned a company called Giant Records, and they did Sister Sweetly. Got them David Z., who had been the engineer/producer for a billion Prince records and was the engineer at Paisley Park. Actually recommended to me by Leo Kottke, who grew up with David Z. in Minneapolis. And David had done a couple of Leo records, and Leo's, who I've managed forever and promoted forever. We were looking for a producer for the first album for Todd, and he said, well, I got a guy that I grew up with here that is so smart and so good. His name is David Rifkin. I said, Leo, there's no producer that I know named David Rifkin. He said, well, that's his real name, and that's what I grew up with him. But, when he joined Prince as his producer and his brother Bobby was his drummer, he wanted to call it something else, so I changed it to Z. And Z did the Sister Sweetly album that sold 1.5 million records.
An incredible album. How did the Leo Kottke relationship come about?
He played for me like the 4th or 5th act. We became best friends. I still am. I've just retired from management. So after all these decades, decided I'm trying to slow down just a little. So I gave Leo to my nephew, Kevin Morris, who's become a really big manager at Red Light, has Alabama Shakes and Amos Lee and Drive By Truckers. And
he's great.
And now Leo Kottke, who I gave. And Leo's known him since my nephew was in diapers. And it was a very smooth transition. I still talk to Leo 4 times a week and go to a bunch of his shows. You don't drop being best friends.
Right.
Yeah. And I still love Leo Kottke to death, and what a wonderful career he's had.
What brought you back to the promoting side when you were being so successful on the management side?
Phased retirement.
So had Barry not retired, you would have
probably wouldn't have. Yeah, the first time he came back to try to beat me, which didn't work. I just felt I was always number 2 guy. And there was just an opening for me to start a big promoting company and call my boys at BGP, at Bill Graham, and that's how it started.
Okay, so when you opened up the Fillmore, something that your predecessor said would never work.
A lot of people said it wouldn't work.
You guys rolled out a schedule for that looked like the Summer of Stars. Double truck, huge calendar, all sorts of genres. Country, eclectic, alternative.
Our first weekend
rock.
we opened with Trey, who, by the way, is opening our new club, at least the 2nd and 3rd nights. And our new club, we'll talk about in a minute, is the Fillmore 25 years later. That's going to knock people's socks off. Anyway, first we had Vince Gill, Trey, and Blondie, I think, for the first weekend.
It's a pretty great opening weekend.
Yeah. And I'm still proud of that place. But when I left that company, and my old friend Phil Anschutz, AEG, who I knew way before AEG, great friend of mine, asked me to run his hometown in this part of the country. I couldn't resist from the first day, and took my 2 key guys. Don Strasberg, who's brilliant, who opened the Fox when he was 23, still owns the Fox Theater in Boulder, and Brent Fedrizzi. And we wanted to build a new Fillmore. And it took us 9 years to find the right location and the right people to build it. And it's opening in a month. And it's going to kill people.
Does First Bank Center kind of answer that? Didn't that answer that?
No, the First Bank Center is a mini arena. It's a different animal. This is a monster club that's going to and we built it from the ground up. Right, and it's in Rhino.
Let's not tease it anymore. Let's talk about the mission. The buzz is huge. The lineup of the shows that you've announced are insane.
Here's the ones on sale so far.
All right, Lumineers.
We have 70 acts.
Lumineers. This is the underplayable. What did they blow through? 3 fiddlers last time?
Yes. That's very good. You knew that. Yeah. 42,000 tickets, and they're from here. And they wanted to open the room.
Trey, Gregory Allen Isaacoff, who sells Red Rock stuff, with Amy Ray from Indigo Girls. Ben Harper and the Innocent Criminals. That would be enough.
That
would be enough for 2 shows by itself at Red Rocks. But Trombone Shorty's also on that bill. Steve Miller with Marty Stewart doing a night. Herbie Hancock with Kamasi, George Clinton in Parliament, Floating Lotus.
That's the farewell tour, by the way, of George Clinton.
Suicide Boys, Skillet with Seven Dust. This is insane.
And no one's seen the room yet. And God bless agents and managers who have faith in what me and my team, especially Brent and Don and myself, they have faith that we're building an unbelievable place, and it is.
Big Head Todd and the Monsters in October with Los Lobos.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Los Lobos could probably sell the room by themselves, so could Big Head Todd, but why not? What the hell? We can do it. Let's do them both.
Well, let me tell you, want me to tell you a little bit about
this?
This
is incredible. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's in Rhino. Rhino is the hottest, fastest growing neighborhood, only 3/4 of a mile from downtown. It's all millennials live there. It's all condos, townhomes, hip restaurants. It's between, for people who know Denver, between Coors Field and the Coliseum, all been restored. And we found these 12 acres that Westfield was developing, a really great developer, and they wanted the club to be the centerpiece of it. They're building a hip boutique hotel next to it, a bunch of restaurants, a bunch of cool retail places, all sorts of stuff. The club is 3,950 seats, and I'm still proud of the Fillmore, but we took what we thought were things that limited the Fillmore and changed it because we built this from the ground up. First of all, we have 1,900 seats, and pillows are being, when you want, you can sit on a pillow. These are somewhat like bleachers, 1,900 of them. The Fillmore doesn't have hardly has any sitting at all. The rest is the ballroom, is the floor.
Now, are you going to be able to seat that for other kind of shows?
We can do it any way we want. For privates, we can put tables and chairs. For most of the shows are going to be GA. One of the greatest things that's never been done in Denver that we have in this club is our 3,950 is full capacity. We have a system where the whole stage, sound, lights, and petition that's totally top to bottom moves, so we can make the capacity 3,950, 3,500, 3,000, 2,500, and it'll look sold out.
Kind of 930-esque.
Exactly. You can't see behind it. We're also going to have so many wonderful things, and it's in such a great neighborhood. 250 seats for the bands underneath, parking rather underneath, and for VIPs or for people that buy boxes or seats per show we're selling. It's in such a great neighborhood. We're opening in 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and few people have seen it, but I'm more proud of this. I think it'll be by far the greatest club ever built in this town. I can honestly say that.
Well, the model that you guys have put up online, there's a full graphic that's floating around that's gone viral. It's really amazing. Is mind-blowing.
Well, we're still going to make some mistakes, but, between Don, Brent, and myself, we got almost 100 years. I have 48 of them. Those guys now have, can't believe they're like 50 now. They were like my kids when I first got together. But we have a lot of experience. Don started the Fox. I had Pelagi's, Ebbets Field, Rainbow Music Hall, blah, blah, blah. We learned. One of the biggest things is we have a high ceiling. We had a low ceiling at the Fillmore because that's the way it was originally. You couldn't change that.
Right, it's all skating
and some
rink.
production couldn't get in there. We have a stage the size of Pepsi Center stage that moves. We also have 1,900 seats where you can sit if you want, or you can stand on those seats. They're bleachers, so 1,900 people can sit if it's a listening type of thing, and we could put chairs on the floor if we felt like it.
Stage the size of the Pepsi Center. So if an arena act wanted to tech for a couple days,
it's going to be arena acts. It's going to be arena
do a
acts.
couple warm-up shows.
Yep.
Yeah, what an interesting idea.
And it is gorgeous. It is just an amazing looking place. We're about 90% done now and opening in 6 weeks.
So let's talk about adding something of that scale to this market. You guys already have the Ogden. You have the Bluebird.
The Gothic. First Bank Center.
Right.
Most of the shows are Red Rocks.
The Fox
and Fiddler's Green.
And the Boulder Theater
as a
kissing
sister
cousin.
Company.
Sure.
And remember, Scott Campbell, who works for us, has the Larimer Lounge. That's a sister company of ours.
So that's a whole lot. Not even talking about what Live
And we
Nation's doing
started
in the
with
market.
nothing when I left. When we left and started AEG. Nothing.
That's a lot of volume that you guys have
We
got
do about
nights to fill.
800 shows a year in Colorado alone.
With that going on the books, obviously your volume is going to have to increase. So what do you see that going to 1,000?
I don't know.
How many bookers now?
6.
We didn't even talk about the fact that the Cervantes guys joined you guys. So
Who are great. We love
so
those
rooms
guys.
are kind of
And you know everything. You still live here?
Got a little eye on the market.
Everything. Well, you do shows here, so of course.
Got an eye on
we
the
love
market.
those guys.
Yeah, Scott and Adam are amazing.
I love those guys.
Okay, but when you add the number of venues those guys have too, it's just like the number of shows just internally that you guys need to get. Forget the buyer, any of the other buyers in the competition getting shows. Fiddlers on top of what you're doing at Red Rocks. The volume that you guys have to produce to keep those venues full is amazing.
Well, can I tell you something? We don't have trouble getting shows, and we don't have trouble filling most of our venues. This is the most amazing, I think, city for music appreciation of any city in America per capita. I don't think anything's close.
Any critical mass?
Hey, yeah, there's one critical mass. If we have a big recession, that'll hurt us for a little while.
Right, because 9 years ago when it happened, it hurt everybody.
Yeah, it hurt us, but not dramatically. It hurt us a nice chunk, but we got through it. You'll probably agree with me. When there's a recession, the last thing people stop doing is going to concerts and entertainment. Yeah, they stop, but that comes close to being first of continuing.
I think we all saw it last time. We saw which shows continued to sell.
Yeah.
And the hot of the hot still sell. Kids shows still sell because parents will go into credit card debt for their kids.
Yeah, that's right.
And the shows that do give up are
mid-size.
The mid-size. And
we
world
cut down
music
a little
seemed
when
to
that
die
happened.
quick too. Yeah, it was
this town, and I'm not the only one that's helped build it. You got things like E-Town with the Foresters. You got Telluride Bluegrass. You have so many wonderful institutions here, great radio stations, and great artists that have come out of here. I started the Colorado Music Hall of Fame, and you think about just the last 10 years, you've had the Fray, you've had Nathaniel Rateliff, you've had the Lumineers, you've had, and in the 70s, you had the Dirt Band and and 80s, Dan Fogelberg, and so many other acts, going back to Glenn Miller, who got inducted. I mean, he went to see you. I mean, this has been an amazing town for artists developing.
It truly is the Seattle sound. Colorado's got its own. It really was just Big Head Todd and the Subdudes for a little while, but it really has developed into something bigger.
Yeah, but it's funny when I first became partners with Greg Perloff and BGP, he would get the ticket counts and he would call me and say, he said, "This must be a typo. There's no way you sold 7,000 tickets and going to sell out." I'm making this up, but Michael Fronte. And I said, "It's not a typo. He's huge here." I mean, the taste of, this, because you do different markets. It's just so different than most other cities.
Well, and you oversee other markets too, right? So when you're looking at New Mexico, Utah.
Much different, especially Utah.
Wyoming, which not much plays.
We don't do that much there, but yeah.
You've got these surrounding markets. And Kansas City, which I know is not part of your territory, but I know you know what Mike was doing there.
Oh, yeah.
And that's actually a better market than the rest that I just mentioned.
Absolutely.
But Colorado is this oasis in the middle of some very bad C markets that just don't live up to it.
I know.
I mean, Utah's got the population, but they just never sell the tickets.
I know.
New Mexico somehow always falls flat. You try, but you got to get between Phoenix and Denver somehow. It's a hard
and
thing.
Salt Lake's a tough place sometimes.
Right. So these other markets, you go in because you do your friends the solid. You need to make the week work for them. You help.
Yep.
It's like whatever it takes. They're there for you. You're there for them. You go, you do the show, regardless of how disappointing it is. But do you ever think to yourself, why can't Salt Lake? Why can't we develop these markets into that?
It's been 50 years, not only me, but all these Barry and E-Towns and Telluride Bluegrass and all these people that have developed this great culture.
So it's just ingrained in the scene.
Great music and a great music scene and a great music audience.
All right. So you got inducted into the Colorado Music Hall of Fame recently. Congratulations.
Yeah, I helped start it, and I actually recused myself from being inducted, and then I dropped out of running it, and they voted for me, and that was really fun. They did a roast, and I had some of my friends who roasted me, from the guys from String Cheese, from Yonder, from Leftover. John Hickenlooper, I'm best friends with, was the MC.
Oh, fun.
And then we had some surprises like Cactus Mosher, who grew up here, who was the drummer in Highway 101, which Group of the Year that I managed, and was in a bunch of local bands here, grew up in Denver, was a surprise. Bob Schneider, who I love to death, I managed the Ugly Americans. He was a surprise that walked on stage. Still great friends with him. And it was a fun night. NBCO got inducted. It was great. And we had the Lumineers play. A lot of the bands played. It was a great night.
Yeah, that lineup was very all-star. Amos Lee is incredible.
Yeah.
How much buying are you actually doing at this point?
Me?
Yeah.
Very little.
You're running the company.
Yeah. Don and Brent are partners. They are terrific. I mean, Don is an unbelievable buyer. So is Brent, although he does a lot of the business stuff in the office, but he books too. And then we have, Campbell. We have the guys from Cervantes. We have a young Danny Sachs is great, a young buyer. My job is really maybe big projects, finding new rooms, having a great relationship with the head of our company, Phil Anschutz, that I spend on a personal level so much time for 30 years. So, sometimes getting some money sometimes is easy for me, easier than most people. I oversee it. I mean, at Faye, I did 60% of the booking, but I don't do that. And my job is really morphed into more or less, if it's a band that played for me a lot, I still go to 200 shows a year because I watched Faye at the end, not go to shows, and I thought that it just
lost touch.
But
you still love it, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd retire if I didn't love going to work. The day I don't enjoy it, I will retire. And I've been blessed that I can.
Management or promoting, looking back, which did you enjoy more?
They both had their upsides and downsides. I think I was a better promoter than manager. Well, I was a pretty good manager. I did some pretty interesting things. Lyle Lovett's first 5 years, Big Ed Todd, Highway 101 was Group of the Year. I did pretty good. Susie Bogus did well for us, but I think I was more natural at promoting. I got tired, though, and really don't manage anymore. I got tired of those phone calls at 11 o'clock at night saying the sound sucked in Omaha. You know what I mean? That was a little too much for a guy who's 70, 70 plus.
So you had to pick one path.
Yeah, and I wanted to slow down a little, so that was one of the things I slowed down with.
Slow down to 800 shows a year.
Well, but I have so many people. It's
Right.
a whole company.
Massive
and I'm talking
team.
about Denver, let alone our corporate guys who sometimes can help on certain things.
Well, let's talk about that because there's a proof of theory. Live Nation is the biggest promoter in the world. You were with them for a long time. You know them well.
Absolutely. Treated me well.
And now you're on the other side of the aisle.
Wouldn't have left, by the way, unless my dear friend Phil Anschutz, who I went to Soviet Union in 1988 for 10 days with the Dirt Band, and that's another story. Phil doesn't go to a lot of shows, but he loved the Dirt Band, who are from here. And he used to go to Dirt Band shows. That's how I became friendly with him. And then in 1988, he calls me out of the clear and says, Chuck, do you know about my Western art collection? The Anschutz collection is the largest Western art collection in the world. And sometimes he tours it to different countries.
It's an exhibit. It's that good.
Oh, it's
amazing.
There's nothing close in the world. And he said, we're opening up the Trekiev Museum in Moscow for 6 months. I've never done this before, but I want to bring my favorite country band to play 30 minutes acoustic in Moscow. And I'm doing other business because Phil owns a lot of companies. AEG is just one part of it, small part of it, actually. He said, how much does the Dirt Band get? And I told him, he said, I want to fly you and the guys and girlfriends and wives. I'm there for 9 other nights doing other business. We'll all go out for dinner every night, and you can do 30 minutes to open up my exhibit. And I said, boys thought it was great. I mean, they didn't have a lot of billionaire friends, and they really liked Phil and Nancy, and really got close with them, and I got really close with them. And so I called back Phil and said, Phil, we're going to do it. Don't worry, but we're there for 9 nights. Can we maybe, this is going to be the art community and press and Soviet. This is 18 months before the Russian Revolution, so you can imagine what Moscow was like.
Pretty buttoned up, I imagine.
Yeah. Is there a chance you can get us a couple of free shows to play in front of maybe some kids, younger audience?
Let's have some fun.
And he said, Chuck, the whole country's falling apart. Sometimes it takes me a day to get a phone line into Moscow. I deal with Soviet Union officials, and they disappear on me because the Russian mafia was taking over then. This was right before the Russian Revolution. This was summer of 88. 90 was the revolution when the whole government fell. He said, but I'll try to get you a couple of dates. And for 20 years, I was friends with Phil, long before AEG. And if I ever thought he could make anything happen, he calls me back in 3 days and says, okay, the first night you're going to do 30 minutes at the Trekiev Museum. We'll have press there and TV and art people. Second night, I arranged a private concert at this beautiful opera house. We're inviting Soviet Union officials and their families, the U.S. Embassy and their families, and giving away 1,500 tickets to Russian students. And the third night I just arranged, and I'll never forget what Phil said. He said, Chuck, please don't be mad at me. This is Phil talking to me. Don't be mad at me. I said, Phil, we'll do whatever you want. This is going to be so much fun. He said, well, I wasn't sure if you and the band were going to like this, but I had to say yes, because I do a lot of business in the Soviet Union, other business, oil, all sorts of stuff. And I found in the Soviet Union, if they offer you something, you have to say yes or no. If they say, if you say, I got to go talk to somebody, it goes away. So I said, yes, I hope you're going to like it. I said, Phil, we're going to be so happy. We're going to have so much fun. We're so excited. He said, okay, you're going to do a free concert in Gorky Park. Played in front of about 15 or 20,000 people. How he did that to this day, I've never figured out.
15 or 20,000 people?
Yeah, and we spent 9 nights there. my girlfriend at the time, we're married, now mother of 3 of my kids, and the band and their wives and girlfriends, and Phil paid for everything, and it was just the greatest experience. And that's when I became best friends with Phil and Nancy and the whole Anschutz family. And then later on, he asked me to, what my deal was up at Live Nation to start AEG for this part of the country. Mentioning that, did I notice there wasn't a hometown office for AEG? I said, yeah. And he said, I'm not going to do it without you, Chuck. So that's how it started. Couldn't turn him down.
So you have developed what possibly is the one market in the world that AEG is a bigger promoter than Live Nation.
I'm not so sure about that. We do pretty well with LA Live in LA. We do pretty well in London. We're building a lot of stuff around the O2.
Super competitive markets, but
yeah.
Here you're dominant.
We do very well. Yes, we're very dominant.
Stadiums, arenas, amphitheaters, clubs, festivals.
But it's all about the staff. I took everybody with me, almost everybody. I would have taken everybody, but I didn't know how big we were going to get when we started AEG, and I have a lot of great loyal people to me.
So is it possible to do what you guys have done here in other markets? Can you fight Live Nation and as an outsider of that big system?
Do I think so?
Yeah.
With the right people? Absolutely. Hey, they're very good. Don't get me wrong. I don't take them lightly. And I had a great experience over there. They treated me real well, paid me real well. But I loved Phil and couldn't resist.
Would it be possible without the venues?
No, you have to build venues to get bigger.
The venues are the key.
Of course. And tours. And we don't do 1/10 of the tours they do, but we have the 2 biggest tours in the world right now. The Rolling Stones around the world and Elton's farewell tour.
Pretty big tours.
Yes.
Which either of those play in the Mission?
No, we already had 2 nights at Pepsi with Elton, and Rolling Stones are coming to Mile High.
I've never seen a tour on a stadium level get moved the way the Stones did without any need for another dollar of advertising when they moved the dates. The way they did that was so brilliant. It was amazingly brilliant.
Yeah, I know.
Do you have any advice for any of the young kids coming up in the industry?
Yeah, and I teach a lot at colleges. My advice is, if you're in college, get in the door. Be an intern, scrub floors at KBC. If you're here at BCO, be a runner for us. Get in the front door. You know, because I don't look at grade point averages when we get young kids that graduate from college. I look at their resume.
And what's the future hold for you?
I want to actually teach in college music business in the next couple of years.
Well, that's exciting. I think that would be fun.
I'm very excited about that, and I'm already starting to talk about that.
But possibly a CU thing?
Maybe.
That would be cool. I can't thank you enough for taking the time and talking to me.
Hey, this has been fun, man. Dan, and I'm a big fan of yours, man. I mean, you had to fight us clods here, and you survived and did well. I think it's great. I have a lot of credit for people like you.
You learn by going up against the best.
Well, I appreciate that, but, I know how tough it can be being an independent because that's how I started. I'm always look at people like you, and I think the world that can do it mostly independent, and that's really pretty amazing.
High praise coming from you. Thank you so much, Chuck.
My pleasure, man.
So much fun spending some time with Chuck and just shining a light on what's going on that whole Rocky Mountain region with their brand new venue and his entire career. It's pretty friggin' epic. So thrilled to have an icon like him right here on Promoter 101.
Still to come on the Promoter 101 Masterclass sessions.
Greg Perloff,
Harvey Goldsmith,
Jody Goodman,
Randy Phillips,
Rick Mueller, Emma Banks.
Only on Promoter 101
Masterclass.
My name is Terry McBride. I'm the co-founder and CEO of the Network Music Group, and I'm on Promoter 101.
Feel free to tell us what's on your mind. Write us at steiny@promoter101.net.
Hey, we'll be back Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. on the Eastern Seaboard.
Join us then, and we'll feature Live Nation's NorCal badass boss lady, Jody Goodman.
You know her, right? She's like famous.
Yeah, she's a boss for sure.
Until then, we're wishing you sold out shows for the week to come. Cheers!
Make sure you go and call your mother and check out Lizzo.
Natalia, United Talent Agency, and I'm on Promoter 101.
All right. Promoter 101. Promoter 101. Promoter